James, who turned 18 in December 2025, has only recently begun embracing the attention that comes with his role in the royal family. The freshly graduated teen is the son of Prince Edward, Duke of Edinburgh, the youngest brother of King Charles, and Sophie, Duchess.
He was born eighth in line to the British throne, in a quiet hospital room in Surrey, to parents who had already decided that the crown's brightest spotlight was not something they wanted for him. 18 years later, that same young man stands at the one true fork in the road of his royal life, a choice no one else can make for him, and one that most royal watchers now believe he is about to decline. This is the story of James Alexander Philip Theo Mountbatten Windsor, known to the world as James, Earl of Wessex, the youngest grandchild of Queen Elizabeth II, and the boy his parents raised to be ordinary on purpose. James Alexander Philip Theo Mountbatten Windsor was born on December 17, 2007, at Frimley Park Hospital in Surrey, the second child of Prince Edward and Sophie, then the Earl and Countess of Wessex. At the moment of his birth, he was eighth in line to the throne, ahead, in fact, of his own older sister, Lady Louise, because the rules of succession at the time still gave precedence to sons over daughters. That quirk of law would not last much longer. When the Succession to the Crown Act took effect in 2015, ending centuries of male preference primogeniture, it applied only to those born after October 2011. So James kept his place ahead of Louise, a small legal accident of timing that has followed him through every official line of succession list since. He entered the world with a name that already carried the weight of royal history. James honors no single relative in particular, but Alexander and Theo were chosen simply because his parents liked them, while Philip was included as a tribute to his grandfather, Prince Philip, Duke of Edinburgh, a detail Buckingham Palace confirmed at the time of his birth. He was christened at Windsor Castle in April 2008 in a private family service, reportedly the first royal baby to be dressed in a hand-sewn replica of the christening gown originally made for Queen Victoria's eldest daughter. As a child, James was formally styled Viscount Severn, a courtesy title reflecting his position as heir to his father's earldom. He held that title for 15 years, largely out of the public eye, growing up at Bagshaw Park, the family's Surrey estate, alongside his older sister. What sets James apart from most royal children was decided before he was born at all. When Prince Edward and Sophie Rhys-Jones married in 1999, Buckingham Palace made an announcement that quietly reshaped how an entire branch of the family would be raised. Any children of the marriage would be styled as the son or daughter of an earl, not as a prince or princess, even though the law entitled them to it. Under letters patent issued by King George V in 1917, any male-line grandchild of a reigning monarch is automatically entitled to be called his or her Royal Highness, with the title of prince or princess attached to their first name. That is exactly the entitlement Princesses Beatrice and Eugenie have used their whole lives, as daughters of the Duke of York. Edward and Sophie chose differently for their own children, a decision that had nothing to do with any legal restriction and everything to do with the kind of life they wanted their son and daughter to have. Sophie explained the thinking behind it directly in a 2020 interview with the Sunday Times. She said that she and Edward wanted to raise Louise and James, with the understanding they are very likely to have to work for a living, and that this was why they chose not to use the HRH style at all. She added that the title would still be theirs to claim once they turned 18, though she doubted either of them would want to. The effect of that decision was immediate and lasting. Instead of growing up as a prince who would be recognized and deferred to everywhere he went, James grew up as the son of an earl, a title of real nobility, but one that carries none of the automatic public recognition or ceremonial weight of a royal HRH. He went to a private christening instead of a nationally broadcast one. He grew up largely shielded from press coverage, attending a private school, playing sports, and living what by royal standards counts as an unusually normal childhood. In February 2023, a few months after King Charles III accession, Prince Edward was granted the historic title Duke of Edinburgh, a title that had belonged to his father, Prince Philip, and which the late Queen and Prince Philip had reportedly long hoped would eventually pass to their youngest son. With that change, James, then 15, took on a new courtesy title of his own, Earl of Wessex, the very title his father had held for more than 2 decades. He made his first public appearance under that new title at the Easter Sunday service at St. George's Chapel, Windsor, in April 2023. The change in title did not come with a change in visibility. James has continued to make only occasional public appearances at church services at his grandfather's commemorations and, memorably, standing vigil alongside his cousins over the coffin of Queen Elizabeth II at Westminster Hall in September 2022, when he was 14 years old. Beyond these appearances, most of what is publicly known about his day-to-day life has come from his parents rather than from James himself, since he has given no personal interviews about his upbringing or his views on his own future role. James turned 18 on December 17, 2025, reaching the age at which, under the same 1917 letters patent, he became free to start using the style of His Royal Highness and the title of Prince James, if he chose to. Only the reigning monarch can formally revoke that entitlement altogether. Turning 18 simply hands the decision of whether to use it to James himself. He is not the first of his generation to face this exact choice. His sister, Lady Louise Mountbatten-Windsor, turned 18 in 2021 and made her decision then. She opted to continue as Lady Louise rather than adopt the style of princess. Royal commentators widely expected James to follow the same path, and reporting around his birthday in December 2025 suggested that expectation still holds. A friend of Prince Edward and Sophie told the Daily Mail around the time of his birthday that taking on the prince title was, in their words, about the last thing James was interested in. Reflecting, they said, values he'd absorbed from watching how his parents built their own public lives around service rather than status. That expectation sits inside a broader pattern King Charles III has pursued since becoming monarch. A deliberate effort to keep the working royal family smaller and more focused, rather than expanding the number of prominent titled figures drawing on the public purse and public attention. Louise and James declining their titles fits neatly into that strategy, whether or not that was the family's original intention back in 1999. It is worth being precise about what is actually still unresolved. As of now, there has been no formal announcement from Buckingham Palace confirming what James has decided, and no changes to how he is styled in the court circular or on the royal family's official channels. The reporting that exists is testimony from friends and family members speaking to journalists, not an announcement from the palace itself, which is itself consistent with how quietly this entire branch of the family has always operated. Whatever James ultimately decides about his title, his connection to Prince Philip is not in doubt. It's written into his name. Buckingham Palace confirmed when he was born that his parents included Philip among his 4 given names specifically as a tribute to his grandfather. Sophie has also spoken publicly about the more ordinary version of that bond. In the same 2020 interview, she mentioned that Edward liked to take James fishing, one of the few concrete, on-the-record details about how father and son spent time together. Beyond that, most of what has circulated online about a uniquely close, almost mystical bond between Philip and James. Vivid scenes of fly fishing lessons on the River Dee understood as leadership training, or claims about which grandchild Philip supposedly favored, comes from speculative commentary and unverified retellings, rather than from anything the family has said on the record. It's easy to see why that kind of story spreads. Philip really was the family's youngest grandchild's namesake. He really did take his grandson fishing, and the appeal of tracing a great man's legacy directly into his newest heir is obvious. But the specific claims about temperament, mentorship, and inheritance that get built on top of those 2 real facts are, as far as public reporting shows, invention. For now, James remains in his final year of A-level studies at Radley College in Oxfordshire, preparing for exams in the spring of 2026. Whatever title he is using by then, his own life is following an ordinary British teenager's calendar before it follows a royal one. Exams first, and then, presumably, some version of the next stage, university, work, or a deeper involvement in royal duties that the family has not yet made public. If he follows the pattern his sister set, and the pattern his parents have quietly built for a quarter of a century, the likeliest outcome is not a coronation-adjacent moment of a young man claiming his destiny, but something far less cinematic. A young man choosing, again, not to use a title that has been legally his since birth, because his parents raised him to believe that a normal working life mattered more than a royal one. That more than any letters patent or formal announcement may end up being the real story of James, Earl of Wessex, not a prince accepting his crown, but a young man declining one, for reasons his family settled on before he ever had a say in the matter. Nothing here is final. James has not spoken publicly himself. Buckingham Palace has made no formal statement, and the choice, as it has always been, remains entirely his own.